This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Google Pixel XL. It comes in two sizes, XL, extra large, you get it. 5.5 inches, that's the one we have here. The regular Pixel is 5 inches. Otherwise, you're looking at the same specs other than, well, a lower resolution display because it is smaller. It's 1920 by 1080 versus 2560 by 1440 here, your QHD display. Obviously more room for a bigger battery in here. Obviously your screen's going to use more battery, so you get the idea. So Pixel replaces the Nexus line, and this is where Google takes even more control, particularly this time over the hardware design. Previously, as you know, they partnered with HTC, with Huawei, with various manufacturers, and made different Nexus phones, and they let HTC and Huawei and Samsung and whoever was making it have some say over the look. Well, Google decided to have more control. So what we have here is, it's kind of actually a bland phone that doesn't look as flagshipy and as expensive as it might. It's not terrible looking, I'm not insulting it, but it's not exciting. And the contrasting piece of glass here, honestly, I think is a kind of odd design element. But it has a functional purpose insofar as it raises the edge here so your camera hump doesn't stick out. So they can make fun of Apple with the camera hump, see? It's available in silver, which this is, with really a white glass back. They also have one called really black, which isn't really black. It's more like a gunmetal, really dark gray. It's not bad looking with black glass over here. And then there's that really blue one, which is for the 128 gig storage model only. So another change this time around for our friendly phones. Now, Nexuses have served a variety of purposes since their inception. Sometimes it was to show the best and most flagshipy kind of features and hardware inside when manufacturers were kind of going low, which happened with the early years of Android. Then they started making ones that were developer friendly, that had pretty decent specs for less money than some flagship phones, but they were pretty useful. And obviously always unlock bootloader, and you get the latest version of Android and updates before all your other friends who don't have a Nexus. So now we've gone completely flagship, at least in terms of pricing. Specs, we'll talk about that and decide. Some of the specs are pretty high-end here. You get a Snapdragon 821 CPU, for example, a pretty impressive camera on the back, but $649 for the smaller Pixel and $769 for the Pixel XL. That's big bucks, folks, and that's for the 32 gig version. If you want the 128 gig version, another $100. So you're talking almost Samsung Galaxy Note 7 prices here. Of course, you don't get the fireworks with this one that you might have with the Note 7. Anyway, there's a lot to look at. We're going to talk about it now. So the phone has a really pleasing looking QHD AMOLED display. For those of you who like AMOLED saturated colors and those really inky deep blacks, you're going to get it here. It might not be quite as zingy as the Samsung Galaxy S family of phones, but it's pretty darn nice, and you don't get the color temperature adjustments if you want to go to sRGB and be strictly accurate and all that kind of thing. I think it's a nice enough display, and I think I like it a little bit better than I do the Moto Z displays that are also AMOLED. Slight curve to the glass here. I mean, it's a nicely made phone. It doesn't look cheaply put together. It's just, I think the design's a little boring. Knurled button right here for the power, so you can feel the tactile difference between the volume buttons. I like it better when they're on opposite sides. No accidents that way, but at least they're far enough apart and you have the texture difference. Antenna lines shown over here. There's a nice bevel to the phone that makes it look a little thinner than it is. It really is not a super skinny phone, but it's perfectly fine, in my opinion, in terms of that. Now on the bottom, you have your USB-C port. Now, ever since Nexus 6P, you know, Google's been rolling with that, and that's a good thing. You got two holes over here, but it's a mono speaker, and it's an okay speaker. It's not awesome. It does make me miss the stereo speakers on my Huawei-built Nexus 6P, though. Up top, good times, a headphone jack. Traditionalists rejoice. You have a headphone jack right there. And on the back, obviously, you get that two-tone thing with the glass going on here, your 12.3 megapixel camera with your multi-tone LED flash. And this is where the fingerprint scanner is. That kind of drives me crazy, but it could be worse. Let me explain. I don't like that I have to pick up the phone and put it in my hand to unlock it. I do like that it's a very quick and responsive fingerprint scanner. That part is good. And I do like that that means all on-screen buttons. So there's no confusion between a mix of hardware buttons and on-screen buttons. I like with the Moto phone, the fingerprint scanner being right here, I always take it for the home button, just out of habit, touch it, nothing happens because, you know, they're up here. So there you have it. Clean design, big here, yes, slightly iPhone derivative. You might want to say that. Let's grab the big pink iPhone so you can see them together. Now, since Apple moved the antenna lines to the edges, it's actually different. They used to have them running across the bottom just like so. And the front look right there. You know, then again, it's pretty hard. Most smartphones are slabs of glass and metal these days. So yeah, they're going to look somewhat alike. In terms of size, the iPhone with its 5.5-inch display is a really giant phone. So excuse me, not Nexus, Pixel XL is just a little bit smaller. And it's a lot smaller than the Nexus 6P, which was one ginormous phone. Now, we don't usually show you the box or what's in the box, but since this is a phone that's going to be sold mostly probably through Google's website as an unlocked phone, you won't get to see it in person. Unless you're a Verizon customer, you want to go to the Verizon store and see it. And even then, you don't usually see the accessories. I do applaud that Google gives you adapters out the wazoo. You have a USB-C charger with actually a USB-C connector over here, not the usual USB-A. You have a pretty long USB-C cable here. Obviously, Google certified. We know some USB cables can be dodgy, as Google has discovered when they test them. So ample cable there. And you have a USB-C to USB-A cable, a little bit longer than the one that came with the Nexus 6P. So that's handy if you want to plug it into your computer. And then even more versatility, we have this little dongle adapter. So you can plug a USB cable in here and then plug this into the USB-C connector on the phone. So you are taken care of when it comes to plugging this into other things. And of course, this acts as a host adapter too. So say you want to plug in a flash drive or something like that into the phone. Nice. I'm glad this is all in the box. People are always hunting for obscure little cables and bits, and you can do everything you need to do out of the box. So we're going to spend some time talking about the software features because honestly, that really is part of the appeal of a Pixel and previously the Nexus phones, because you always get that clean Android build and you get it before anybody else. So this is the first phone to run Android 7.1 Nougat. We've seen the LG V20 that had 7.0 Nougat, and obviously if you have a Nexus phone, you've upgraded to 7.0 probably, but we got a couple of new features here. The most interesting is the Google Assistant. You can talk to her, and the Google search bar is gone from here. It's still actually available. You just pull out and you have your Google Now information here, and there's your search bar, and you can go right back. So if you want to actually make a query now, what's my birthday?
I don't recall.
So lesson number one, and this is different for those of you who are thinking of jumping ship from the iPhone. The iPhone has you set up in your context. So you can say, who's your mom, who's your wife, who's your husband, who's your kids. It knows who you are and when your birthday is. So it's pretty good at things like, when's my mom's birthday? Which this is also going to say, geez, I have no idea. Where it does do well is it has additive or contextual queries. So with most assistants, Cortana, Siri, if you do something like, say, how old is Bryan Cranston?
Here are some matching news articles.
See, it'll do that just fine. Any phone will. But if you don't say his name again, they'll all get confused. They won't know who you're talking about. This one will. Is he married?
He's been married to Robin Dearden since 1989.
So that's what the assistant does well. It's not as personal as Siri, but the contextual abilities here, because a lot of us forget to say, is Bryan Cranston married? Is Bryan Cranston this? Is that? You have to say his name over and over again. So that makes it seem a little bit more intelligent and more interactive. So that's pretty cool. And honestly, Google's voice queries have always been quite good, and in part, they're powered by the wealth of information that's available on Google, the search engine. So that's pretty nice stuff. New UI thing. If you want to get to your app drawer, there's no little pressing the app drawer thing. You just swipe up. I like that just fine. It works. The first time somebody looks at this, they might be like, where's my app drawer? But once you learn it, and it's your straight up and down stuff. Phone is also, as you might expect, nice, fast, and fluid. It has the Snapdragon 821 CPU, and that's the latest and greatest from Qualcomm. It's underclocked actually a little bit, but it still benchmarks very well, but not really particularly above the Snapdragon 820 in tier 1 phones like the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, for example, that it competes with. And unfortunately, right now, Android phones are falling under the iPhone. I know people are going to boo and hiss. Doesn't mean I'm a fangirl, just stating the facts there. But experientially using this phone, it's very quick. I did notice that launching some larger programs like Asphalt 8, it's not the quickest thing in the world, which is interesting. It takes a little bit more time than it has on some phones, and I don't know why it is. Now, that's not too bad there. but slightly slower. The flash memory may not be the quickest. Overall, pretty good though. We've always had the long press on Android, but mostly like if you press and hold on an icon, you can remove it from your desktop, that sort of thing, your virtual desktop. Now it's sort of like 3D touch, a feature that hasn't really taken off on the iPhone much, but can be handy. So if I press and hold on the browser button right here, the Chrome browser, you can see I have a few options here. So that's new also, press and hold, doesn't require special hardware. It can save you some time. Of course, you've got all of Google's apps preloaded on here, including Allo and Duo. Duo is a pretty nice take on FaceTime, better than Skype in a lot of ways. Allo, the messaging application, that really hasn't done so well. They need to do some work on that. Of course, you've got all the built-in messaging stuff. And for those of you who are worried about the Verizon version, yes, it does install your Verizon account manager and very little else. We got another app here, there. Streaming video service. You can actually uninstall these again if you want to, so it's not the end of the world. You put a Verizon SIM in there, it knows you have a Verizon SIM, it puts those on there. So I have nothing against the Verizon version of this phone if you find that the more convenient, easier way to purchase the phone and do a payment plan, all that sort of thing. We also have an updated keyboard here. I'm liking it pretty well so far. With big screen phones, I always like it when I actually get a dedicated number row, but you know, they're third-party keyboards. You can put your favorite on there, and it actually supports GIFs. So, oh my gosh, you can have stickers of cute cats doing funny things in wherever it's supported, like in the messaging application. Now, there's a lot of really excellent competition out there in Android line, and we have some of them here. The LG V20, this is the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. This is the Moto Z Force. You could substitute the Moto Z or even the Moto Z Play to a certain extent there. The Moto Z Play being the cheaper, but still pretty nice phone. So here's the part where I'm a little disappointed for the flagship price. Much as I love Nexus phones and now the Pixel for the clean Android and the holistic feel of it, the experience without all the confusion of third-party and manufacturer customizations and bloatware and all that sort of thing. The always-on display, that's a really nice thing. With the iPhone, it's lift to wake. With the Moto, it has the active display. You pick it up, you turn it, and boom, you don't even have to worry about hitting a power button, unlocking it or anything. You've got your status right there. I kind of like that. I miss that. Of course, the LG V20 has its little secondary display along the top that can provide, there it is, faint, hard to see, but give you status. That's one feature I kind of miss, and I wish that Google would bring that back. Especially because this has an AMOLED display, so it's a pretty low-powered thing to do. They could really do it. It's not water resistant. It's like IP53, which is much below the IP68 water resistance we see with the iPhone and the Samsung Galaxy S7 family, formerly the Note. Bye-bye, Note. Sorry, Note 7. So yes, if it gets splashed with a little bit of water, then Google says you're okay. And that's been true of pretty much any smartphone, honestly. But no giving it a little rinse. You know, have you let your kid play Angry Birds with your phone for half an hour and then said, oh, gross afterwards? You know, you can wash this phone off. You can even wash off the iPhone. You can't do that here. You don't want somebody shooting at you with a hose of water because they think it's fun. If you accidentally drop it in the pool and pull it right out, that probably is not going to be a good thing. There's no wireless charging either. You know, that is the fate of metal-backed phones. But wireless charging, I know, is a popular feature with a lot of you, so just so you know, you're not going to get that either. Obviously, Google still hates microSD card slots. Most other manufacturers, even Samsung, who once took it away, brought it back again, have expandable storage, so you can't expand this. And that kind of pushes you right away into the even more expensive phone. Instead of going with the $649 or $769 for Pixel and Pixel XL, you only get 32 gigs of storage. You can't do anything about that. If you want to get up to your 128 gigs, which is the only other storage option right now, that's $100 more. That's expensive money, folks, for a phone that doesn't have some of these other kind of claims to fame's fancy features. Of course, with the, let's bring the evil iPhone. With the iPhone, you get the dual camera for the 7 Plus here, which is a pretty neat parlor trick for a flagship phone. You get a telephoto lens on there. You get a pretty good depth of defocus feature on there for portraits. With LG, you get the super wide lens over here and some depth of defocus features going on, which is nice. With Samsung, you just get a really darn good camera. They do a lot of sharpening and processing of the image to make it look pretty good. Moto, with the Z Force, it has a good camera. The others, they're okay. They're not bad. They're not as good as the Z Force, but of course there is that crazy Hasselblad mod. And speaking of things you get with flagship, and even less than flagship, you know, with the Moto Z Play, which is only $408, you get these removable backs. You can put batteries, wireless charging on here, the optional camera, a projector, all sorts of nifty things for your money. And with the LG V20, it stands out because it has a removable battery. When you push the little button right there, you can pop off the entire back and get to the removable battery. 12 is a magic number apparently this year, folks. We have yet another 12 megapixel camera, just like the Galaxy S7 family, just like the iPhone 7 family. And I'm fine with that. You know, more megapixels doesn't necessarily mean a better picture here. And you get an 8 megapixel selfie camera up front, which is, as you might expect, pretty sharp and pretty good, yet it doesn't overdo facial details. If you got some zits there, it does a nice facial smoothing on it. But we're going to focus on the back camera here. So Google's best camera UI yet, I have to say, I have never enjoyed their whole circular wheel thing, a whole lot of intuitive things they did. Obvious big buttons over here, access to your photo gallery, switching your cameras. Okay, that's cool. We got the hamburger menu over here. Slow motion, panorama, photosphere, lens blur. And I'll show you an example of lens blur. Lens blur tries to do a depth of defocus effect, but it doesn't have multiple cameras to do that with, so it does a kind of over the top, a little bit overdone version of just blurring everything, and not particular subtle Gaussian blur. So I'm not too impressed with that picture, but sometimes it makes it okay. It's also a little bit weird because it tells you to take the picture and then to raise the camera a little bit. I guess it's trying to do another shot to get that perspective difference to figure out that. So we have quick access to HDR+, which is on by default, and for a change, when you take a picture, it's actually pretty quick now. It used to be that was a slow effect. You got grid lines, you got temperature, you have your flash control. It's nicely done. If you want to shoot video, you can shoot video as well. I like that. So switch to our video mode. It can shoot 4K video. It does a pretty good job. There's no optical image stabilization. That means no stabilization for your hand wiggling around. But it does have software stabilization for shooting video, so that does help. And I'll throw in a couple of sample photos, but overall, it's actually a very good camera. f2.0 lens, that's a little bit slower than the competition right now from Samsung and Apple, yet it really does pretty nicely in low light too, and it takes fairly natural shots too. Like the Samsung, it prefers to shoot towards the cool side, and the iPhone shoots towards the warm side. And honestly, I think all of these cameras are using fairly similar sensors. It's up to the software processing. It's like having a different little Photoshop guru in each brand of phone that you buy, more than anything else. You also get unlimited uncompressed storage of your photos and video in the Google Cloud if you buy a Pixel. So otherwise, you get compressed versions only. So for those of you who trust Google with your selfies and your other perhaps more compromising shots, well, there it is. The phone is clad in Gorilla Glass, by the way, front and back, for those of you who are concerned about breaking it. And inside, in terms of battery life, 2770 milliamp battery for the Pixel and 3450 milliamp battery for the Pixel XL. Those are decent sized batteries, and battery life for our Pixel XL has been good. It's a solid all-day phone. I have not been able to go a day and a half with moderate use, which means streaming some YouTube videos, doing a bunch of SMS, checking my emails, sending a few emails, looking up things on the web, consulting with that Google Assistant, taking some photos, shooting a little bit of video, those kinds of things. If you're going to play Asphalt 8, believe me, it'll be shorter, and that's true with any phone, but it's a solid all-day phone. It's neither stellar for me, nor is it subpar. So that's the Google Pixel XL, also available in regular size, just Pixel size. Really, it's pretty much the same phone, just smaller. And it is a nice enough phone. The software is very coherent. It holds together well. That's something that we can expect because you don't have third parties coming in and customizing, adding duplicate kinds of functionality in terms of how many photo programs do you need, that sort of thing that confuses people. It's sprightly. It's fast. In fact, it's a clean Android. You'll get your updates quickly. It feels nice in the hand. It's not the skinniest phone. It's not the prettiest phone, but it feels nice in hand. But given the flagship price and the really nice competition we see from other Android phones, the Samsung Galaxy S7, S7 Edge, the LG V20, even the slightly weird LG G5 and the Moto Z family, also very cool phones, but there's a lot of competition. And it also hurts a little bit, at least in the United States, that Verizon is the only official carrier, since not many people apparently really buy unlocked phones to use with the carrier of their choice. So An interesting step for Google to go super high flagship, to kind of market it in a way that Apple does the iPhone. And overall, it's a very enjoyable phone. I'm just not sure it's absolutely the best phone for your money. And in part, that depends on what features you want. If you want dual cameras, for example, if you want curvy glass on the sides, if you want software customizations, it's good to have choice, though. And Google's is going to be the cleanest out there in terms of the Android experience. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full written review and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos. Oh, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up.